Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Lit Leaders Unite panel discussion, where we're going to work together, talk together, and be there for you as we get ready to set up students and teachers for summer success. Today, you're going to hear key strategies from our panel about using kindness to connect your communities. We're going to be live tweeting this event from our Twitter account for our ed leaders at Scholastic Ed, where you can join the conversation by using the hashtag ScholasticLitLeaders. My name is Jimmy Brim. I'm the Vice President of Academic Planning and Solution Development at Scholastic. I have the absolute privilege of getting to work with schools and districts across the country and supporting them and all of their literacy solutions in supporting students, teachers, and communities. Prior to joining Scholastic, I was the Chief Academic Officer at Woodford County Schools in Kentucky and started my career as a fifth grade teacher in Jessamine County, Kentucky. We have an absolutely incredible panel today to share with you how they are impacting their students, teachers, and communities. Pam Allyn, Kelly Cito, and Brandon White are here, and we want to thank you all so much for joining us from your extremely busy days and extremely busy jobs to share with leaders across the country. Dr. Kelly Cito serves as the Director of Early Learning in Title I in Norfolk Public Schools in Virginia, an accomplished educational leader who works so hard and tirelessly to support educators in creating strategic steps to ensure quality resources and programming are accessible to all students. Brandon White is joining us from the great state of Indiana, as he is the Assistant Superintendent of Academics with South Bend Community Schools Corporation. Brandon has not only an extensive background as an ed leader, but also a great background in serving on community boards, including the Food Bank of Northern Indiana and Head Start of St. Joseph County, which we're sure to probe into his experiences in leading community organizations. And of course, we are so happy to continue our work and partnership. And thank you for being here today, Pam Allyn, the renowned author, educator, and advocate for the lives of children and readers across the world. She's the founder of the global literacy initiative Lit World, where she has worked to create programs such as LitLeague and LitCamp to build authentic text, authentic programs into the learning environment for summer and during the school year as well. LitCamp is an interactive literacy program that takes a fun summer camp approach aimed at improving students' reading, writing, and social emotional skills that they'll carry back to school in the fall. LitLeague is a sister program geared toward extended learning, perfect for after-school programs so you can extend the learning from LitCamp into the full school year. We are so excited to get together to have this conversation. So let's get started. Welcome, panelists, and let's hop right in. So I'm going to kick things off with a question for our panel. So Pam, I'll ask you to start, and then we'll go Brandon and Kelly to answer this first question. And really, to you, what does kindness look like? What does that feel like? Pam?
Well, I love that question. I love being here with you all. This is the kindness group of the century, these three amazing people I'm with here today. I would say for looking at and creating LitCamp and LitLeague as programs that are centered on kindness, I get to see kindness in action all the time through the lens of children and young adults. And I would say, for me, kindness made visible is really about people being present to other people's stories. I see this in children. I see it in young adults. I see it in the administrative leaders in the communities where LitCamp and LitLeague are running, where I can see immediately that when there is that culture of kindness, you see children leaning in to listen to each other's stories. You see a sense of them encouraging each other to be the truest, most authentic self they can. And I think what a beautiful modeling of kindness we see in the districts where we see children reading together, writing together, but really above all, listening for each other's stories.
I love that. I love that. Love that idea, that visual of leaning into each other. Yeah. Brandon?
Sure. So when I think of kindness, especially regardless if we're talking about teachers or our students, I think about first making sure that yourself is taken care of, and so that you can be present and available to your students and to your classmates, and then being able to support them in their learning while you're doing your own learning. Lit Camp really was a great experience because I had teachers even make comments about it's what they needed for the summer. After coming off of hybrid learning, remote learning completely, just being able to have the opportunity on literacy skills and developing those, but also getting back to students and talking about things that really matter about building character and building a better kind of just world citizen out of our students, and giving them those experiences and getting to capture those types of experiences through the books they read throughout the summer.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Great. What the teachers need. I love that comment. It's what the teachers needed even in this time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. Kindness is for all. You know, we're not thinking about this just through the lens of students, but we also are thinking about this through the lens of the adults. You know, adults, not only our staff, but our families. What do we want the school to feel like when they walk in? What do we want it to sound like when they walk in? What do we want it to look like? It makes a huge difference. And so when you think about kindness, it's about those reciprocal processes that take place on a regular basis. It's that give and take. That's the sharing plus the active listening. And it was a joy just to hear both Dr. White and Pam share, you know, their thoughts about how that works and what it looks like in a community, because it is authentic. It is developed by authentically creating relationships, by listening, by talking, by looking, by being fully present. And that's what kindness is. When someone knows that you are fully present in the relationship that you have with them, that is kindness at the heart.
Wow. Well, I love that. And I love so many key words, you know, as you all were sharing there about what you've seen, you know, when invoking programs that like Lit Camp, who has that strand of kindness and showing and modeling, about some of those keywords that stuck out to me, like speaking and listening, right? Listening critically, hearing another person's perspectives, which are all the skills that we're also trying to take them so they're high quality literacy learners and readers into life. It was neat to hear those keywords that are so deeply embedded inside of being a literature learner. That is just part of learning how to be kind in expressing that kindness.
Well, I actually love that, because I think, you know, Brandon and Kelly, I just love what you said, because it's so active. And sometimes I think when we hear the word kindness, we think it's like soft and small and sort of on the side. But what you both described is so robust and so fierce and so important. It's so central. The well-being of our teachers, the well-being of our families, the well-being of our students is dependent on a culture of kindness, or it's conditional on that culture. So I love, as I was listening, I was thinking, wow, it's such an active way to describe something that sometimes people really imagine as a soft skill. That was a very active, rigorous definition of kindness. And that, you know, especially after what we've, you know, been through and all the people have gone through, that idea that kindness is not, it's a fierce tool that we can use to make our communities whole and strong.
Yeah, and something that Pam, and I've heard you speak about before, maybe you could share with the everyone that is joining us today, you know, that again, it is something that we can support, right? It's not something we just have to hope happens inside of our schools and outside of our classrooms. When you work with educational leaders, how do you help them harness that idea of developing kindness in their school and in their community? What tangible pieces can make it not just a soft skill, but something we can really work on and make an active skill, as you shared?
Well, I think, and these districts really exemplify that. I think what Dr. Ernest Morel and I talk about in our book, Every Child a Super Reader, is a research base. It's a framework actually helping communities think about social emotional learning, about this idea of well-being, is not something that is on the side or marginal, but actually has research to it, that when young people, elders, all ages, as you have all shared, feel a sense of well-being around this idea, I feel trust, I feel safe in this community, I feel welcome, I feel a sense of belonging, that all comes from that sort of reverberates kindness, is a framework. And there's a lot of research behind that. And so we did build a research-based framework called the 7 Strengths, Dr. Morell and I and our team, around this work that really has helped districts to examine these features of, for example, kindness as a way not only to feel good, but also to actually bring best practices forward in literacy development, across all the subject areas. So we feel very excited and happy that the reception to the 7 Strengths as a research-based framework has helped districts to have conversations around the integration of social emotional learning and academic well-being, academic development, academic achievement, the strengths of belonging, curiosity, friendship, kindness, confidence, courage, and hope. Today, we're illuminating kindness. It's such a really powerful force for change in a school community. But I think that's really helped a lot to think about that we want to improve our children's academic achievement. And I am all for that. I'm a literacy educator. I want all young people to learn to read. But in order to do that, we've got to create environments that feel strong for them, in which they can feel not as a deficit model, but as seen through the lens of strength.
I love that. Not as a deficit model, but through the lens of strength. Yeah, how empowering that is. Kelly and Brandon, when you hear Pam speak of that model that her and Dr. Morell have worked on, and the research behind it, that this is what we want to see from students so that they can be successful learners. I guess the question for you inside of your districts and your work with LitCamp and making sure that we provide students that support, how have you seen this idea of harnessing that power of positive energy, harnessing those strengths inside of the classroom? How's that worked inside of your schools and your communities? I'll start with you, Kelly.
Sure, absolutely. I think it starts with what we just talked about. I think first you have to look for and acknowledge kindness. And then you have to look for resources that on a daily basis reinforce that. And the great thing about LitCamp as a resource that we use is that, yes, kindness is one of the strengths. And yes, it has its specific lessons, but it's built into the entire LitCamp model. The kindness starts with the opening campfire, when the students are coming together to build community and they're talking with each other and just sharing their stories, like Pam just spoke about early on. Then there's the closing campfire, where they're giving each other praise and themselves praise and affirmation for what they've done during the day. That's that reciprocal conversation that takes place, that kids learn. That's what it feels like to be kind. That's what it feels like when someone's being kind to me, so that they truly understand and internalize kindness for the world and beyond, in terms of themselves and in terms of others. This goes to the adults also. What was really neat and what we found was that we started to use a similar opening campfire and closing campfire for our adult PLCs. And every time we came together to learn, we talked to each other about our stories. And at the end, we praised and affirmed and celebrated together. So the adults began to see what kindness feels like for them. So LitCamp has it embedded throughout the entire program and resource. It's just amazing. And then it goes beyond that, because then the adults start to show, feel, and sound like that kindness that we look to acknowledge and start. And it shifts that culture to care and kindness, which then leads to all types of successes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, especially, talking about those adults. Yeah, Brandon, how in your community, your district, how have you seen that impact?
Sure. So, I always believe that we have to show up in a couple ways. One, we have to physically be present, but then also we have to be mentally and socially ready to interact with learning, adults and our students. And so when we ground the learning in the 7 strengths that LitCamp is on, it grounds the environment physically through, as Kelly mentioned, the campfire camp experience that some of our teachers did an amazing job really capturing. So that handles the physical environment. But then when we really talk about making sure that the mental space is ready for learning, so our students can be engaged, that really encompasses all the things that are in those strengths. Making sure that kindness is present, caring, hope, that we believe all children can learn. And so as that is captured within the curriculum, I think it just reinforces all of those SEL practices that we have in place to support our students and to support our teachers. And I keep trying to hit back on those adult pieces, because I think if we are engaged in this type of learning, it helps us also become better adults and better educators. As we're trying to reinforce these skills in our students, it's always a great reminder for us as the adults to keep those front and present when we're interacting with our colleagues, parents, or the community, that we also are modeling those strengths for our students to see that. How do they look in authentic practice? You know, we read about them in these awesome titles in books, but really, what does that look like at play? And I think as an educator, one of the most important lessons that we always provide our students is, how do we come and how do we present ourselves in the learning environment?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you have to establish it for your community. That's why I think that first portion of our conversation was so important, because, you know, depending on the community that you're working in and living in and being a part of, you have to acknowledge that entry point, and you have to hear their perspectives to be able to create with them what this caring community or kind community looks like. And so I do is important in terms of creating an environment that they're proud of, excited to come to. And they, like Pam said earlier, that it's welcoming. And the physical environment does play a role in that. And it creates a fun environment for them too. That's one of the wonderful things about LitCamp, is you can transform a school building into a campsite. And the kids will walk in and go, this is not my school. This can't be, you know. And it's wonderful. And even the staff will even be amazingly surprised at what is developed by the innovation and creativity of the staff when they're utilizing LitCamp. So it's wonderful to see for the families, the students, and the staff.
With the poverty levels that we have in our community, kind of speaking to what Kelly mentioned, you know, a lot of our students don't get to go to summer camp. And so I was very intentional this year, and our team was, when we were thinking about summer learning, there's been such this, you know, negative image about learning loss coming back from the pandemic. I don't like those words, learning loss. I like to think learning may have been paused for a moment, or maybe didn't accelerate at the levels that we wanted. But rather than us coming in and making students be in some type of rigid intervention every day, one, they're going to stop showing up. And so we really, you know, discovered LitCamp, and it really spoke to what we believe, that we wanted to make sure that our students that were involved in summer learning, we don't even use summer school, we call it summer learning, that they were, when they were engaged in that this was just a fun and engaging experience that also built their background knowledge and gave them things to talk about when they return to school in the fall, just like, you know, their classmates that may be fortunate enough to go to camp or go on a trip. They can talk about all the experiences that they had during LitCamp. So it really helped us, again, foster just understanding that because summer learning, you know, has sometimes this negative perception, that it doesn't have to be, that it's a great opportunity to just to extend your learning.
I have to say, I just love what everyone's saying so much, because I also just, it's such intentional leadership. It's actually like strength-based leadership, just to hear Brandon and Kelly, both of you, that, you know, Jimmy and I have talked a lot about this. And Jimmy, when you were an administrator in Kentucky, that's how I felt about you too. I felt like the three of you, it's so much intention around everybody in the community. You're thinking about everything from the way we're talking about things. And I agree with you, Brandon, about the language. That's, you know, one of the things that Ernest and I talk about a lot, is that, you know, stop and think about, how are we describing the learning lives of our children, of our teenagers, of our young adults, gaps, loss, you know, deficit. That's grueling. It really presses down on you. If you think about your own self, you know, things that people have affirmed you for in really authentic ways, you live into those things, and things that someone once told you didn't do well, you'll try to avoid at all costs, even if in truth you might actually have a shot at being pretty good at it. I think that language is so important. And I also, just about all of you, really, the empathetic leadership, the piece about about kindness is that you're so intentional. Kelly's talking about the way she begins and ends faculty meetings, and Brandon thinking about his students around the way to surround them with that sense of joy of being in camp, of feeling like you want to go, you're proud to be there. Yeah. And I think that we built Lit Camp out of that idea that we want you to not only want to be there, but bring other people to be there. And that is what has happened. That's why Lit Camp has grown and grown and grown. It went from K-5 to K-8 to entering 9th grade to pre-K, because everybody wants to go, because you feel it's real. It's not, it's very authentic. You are your true self there. And also that intentional leadership that Kelly and Brandon and Jimmy, I've seen you do as well. It's empathetic at every single level, that it's not just what can we do for the kids, but it's really what can we do for everybody in this community. So we're all pouring that out to each other. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's, and what's so empowering to listen to all of, everyone speak about it. And again, thank you for those kind words, Pam, because it's a passion. It was a passion program as mine when I had the opportunity to lead inside the district as well, is that it is something that it's not something that's so abstract that we can't support our teachers and students and thus our community in, that we can put structure around it. And that's what the beautiful program has done that you, Pam, created with you and your team, and saying, listen, if we show students and teachers these attributes, these strengths inside of characters, inside of high quality literature, then they can start to understand what that really looks and feels like, which was our first question. And then we can be the leaders in the community, right? We can be the ones that people look at and say, man, those students who attend that Lit Camp sure do seem to have a good grasp on what caring for others looks like, what kindness really is. And by creating that structure and working together and leading that structure, we impact the students, the teachers, and the community at large, and be the model, right? School systems and schools, we can be the model of what we want to see beyond the building. And that's what I kept hearing as everyone was speaking was, no, we can truly be literature leaders and educational leaders, but we can be community leaders and saying, this is what good practices look like and how we treat each other. And those 7 strengths give that concrete example of that. What I would love for you to speak of, though, in addition, is that in your experiences, Pam, having seen this across the world, and Brandon and Kelly inside of your districts, is we want that interaction between students, but of course we also want that to improve the academic setting itself, improve the structure of how that being in place helps students make the gains. So can you speak about, when we look at that, how does that does the focus on kindness and getting students into literature to see it, how does that impact the academic setting positively so even greater things can happen? And we'll, Brandon, if you don't mind to kick that off, that'd be great.
Sure. So when we talk about kindness and we talk about the other strengths, I bring that back to being ready to learn. And so one of the other goals that we have for our summer learning is some of our students we hadn't seen in almost a year. And so we wanted to really make sure that we captured and made that connection back to our students prior to August, that they knew we are still here. We want to reignite that love of learning. And you do that through choice. You do that through giving kids the opportunity to engage with books and materials that they can relate to and that they can understand. And that also help them deal with the things that, they've experienced over this pandemic. And so it was very important for us to realize and to have conversations with our students about that. These are your schools. We're still here. You haven't seen us, in almost a year, but we're here. We're excited for you to be ready to learn, and also talk to them about how we are building that love of reading that then transfers back when we go back into, conventional classroom kind of settings. But also I was visiting one of the classroom teachers that participated in Lit Camp, and how her classroom was even structured like her Lit Camp classroom. And so we've seen that transference not over into just our students being better equipped to be ready to rejoin in-person learning, but also our teachers learning strategies, learning things that and the structures from the lessons that they even took back and have incorporated into their classrooms in the fall. So I definitely think that it's helped in that way. The other aspect is we want to make sure, again, that we gave our kids learning experiences even outside of the classroom during Lit Camp. Again, giving them that camp-like experience, but we were able then to give that through line between what are the attributes that you're learning during Lit Camp in the classroom, and then how does that transfer when you're out into the community? So yeah, I believe you're getting to see some of our amazing kids in some of their opportunities now that they were able to engage in.
That's great.
Amazing. I love those pictures. I love the pictures. I love that so much that, you know, and it's amazing how I think when thinking about, and I love that the theme of our conversation is kindness, because even the intention with which those teachers have set up those environments and co-creating them with their students, there's measure of kindness in all of that work. That's very intentional. I mean, it looks glorious. And thank you so much for sharing. That made my day personally, but also just think about it, that we're giving teachers the opportunity to also be heroes to their children and giving them a chance to, I think, express themselves in that kindness motif is the way they place the room, the way they're thinking about the environment, the way you talked about, you know, Brandon, about, you know, children not having been able to go to camp. So let's make that camp experience. Let's make it happen for them. Wow. I mean, it's such a tribute to teachers too. That's something that I've often commented on when I think about this program, Lit Camp, is, you know, yes, I wrote it and I made it, but when I see it enacted, it's taken on a life of its own. And teachers have brought their own high levels of empathy and kindness to that work in a way that sometimes administrators will say to me, I didn't even know that my teachers would think like this. It's like they're just in a creative spirit, and also a very, very generously spirited way of thinking about teaching.
Absolutely. And I've been asked the question before, you know, with everything going on with teachers, everything on their plates, how did you get them excited? How did you get them to want to be a part of it? And I think, you know, it's really about showing them that they actually can make this what they want it to be. And I think you all spoke to that just a moment ago. And I just think that's so important, because teachers also want to feel empowered to do what they need to do for their students and use their creativity, use their innovation, use their knowledge, their expertise. And that was really what got them excited about it. It was because they saw with Lit Camp, number one, that it was different, that it wasn't summer school, it wasn't like the school year, and that they could be as creative as they wanted to be with their campers. And they loved being called camp leaders, not being called teachers or staff or summer school staff. They were like, oh, I get to be a camp leader? That is awesome, you know? And then, you know, creating a camp and naming their bunks. All of those things are things that get the adults, the students, and the families all excited. And I think that, you know, is one of the motivational factors, is the fact that they knew they were going to come in, have the resources at their fingertips that they needed, while being able to have fun and be creative and get to know their kids and help them be prepared for the next school year and beyond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Dr. Cito, I know you've had the opportunity to implement Lit Camp in a number of different districts. And I mean, so can you share, consistently able to do that across settings and have that same love?
Yes, yes. And the successes, both, you know, the qualitative and the quantitative successes. I absolutely love those pictures. I tell everybody, pictures tell 1,000 words. They tell the story. Take lots of them and cherish those, because it tells such a story. I can sit there and tell everybody the numbers and how much the students increased in their reading levels and how much they're more prepared for the next year, which is hugely exciting. But when I put up a picture like the ones you just saw of kids in their tents reading together, sharing something, the teacher wearing something that goes along with the theme for the day and the kids getting to wear theirs, it's just so motivating and exciting to see how much fun that environment can be. And also, it just shows kindness. It really does. It just, like I said earlier, the entire Lit Camp program encompasses kindness from the moment you step into it throughout the entire time. And you do want to carry that on. So if you were a fortunate adult to be a staff member in LitCamp, you don't forget it. You do carry it into your classroom. You put some of those tools right in your toolbox and you carry it with you into your classroom because you know it works for children. You know it helps to build community. You know it helps to do peer-to-peer relationships, adult-to-peer relationships. Also, some of them have told me it helped them be more comfortable talking to parents because it gave them fun ways of inviting the families in. So it just does so many things. So yes, I have seen it as a principal of a school. I've seen it as a district leader across divisions. And it's just amazing to see both the quantitative data where the numbers are showing the increases, but also this qualitative piece of the confidence that the child gets when they leave, the community that they've built and continued. And one of the things that I can share quickly is middle school. Everybody's like, how did you make this work in your middle schools with the middle school kids? They don't want to do the opening camp. I'm like, yes, they do. Let me tell you, they love the chants. And if you forget to do the chant, they will certainly let you know that you forgot to do the chant for the day. And they think it's really neat because it's once again building the community and it's affirming them. Because when you think about what the chants are, it is about the community that they're building and how they're interacting with each other. So the middle school students enjoy it just as much as your elementary kids will. And it really excites them to come back because, as we know, if you tell a middle school student you have to come to summer school because you didn't make these grades, it puts a type of feeling for them already in attending. And we don't want any child to have that feeling of lack of confidence or lack of hope. So what we do with LitCamp, it flips that. You're invited to participate in this environment. And it leads to other kids going, well, I want to go. Why am I not invited to the camp? You know, and you just grow it from there. So it's really exciting to see. And yes, year after year, we have the students who attend, we have the staff who want to participate. And sometimes it's hard because you know, sometimes you don't have the space for all of the staff that want to participate. And you're like, well, we're full now, but hold on, we might be able to add another class.
That's funny, Clay. I was speaking to a district leader on the West Coast this week, and they were saying, well, I sent out the summer school notices today. I'm about to get phone calls. And I said, the camp goes great in your district. She goes, no. I'm about to get the phone calls from the parents that we didn't have room for, mad that their kid isn't involved in Lit Camp, which is talk about taking the summer school principal and flipping it over and making that an honor. Yeah, that's great. Brandon, I saw you nodding with using it with older kids. You have experience using with kids, the older students as well?
We do. And, we made some adjustments, but that's the cool thing about Lit Camp is it gives you the structure, but it still allows the teacher or the district flexibility within that structure to really make it fit for what you need and for what your students need. And so we accelerated some things for our secondary students, but again, still enjoyed it and still anchoring it in the 7 strengths is really powerful, especially for our middle schoolers. It was really helpful, and especially looking at a decrease in behaviors, lack of engagement in our incoming 6th graders was really powerful.
Yes. And one of the things I'd like to share too is when you're talking to the middle school kids, ask them the same question you asked us. What is kindness? Mm-hmm. If they haven't participated in Lit Camp, sometimes you'll hear a pin drop. But if they have participated in it, they'll tell you what they think kindness is because they have created it. They haven't just lived it. They've helped to create it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I wanted to say that I love that. And I love the fact that, when we talk about across the grades and the different impacts and such powerful examples, I wanted to just make mention of some of the ways that kindness and the entire context of the 7 strengths also informs on the academic learning, just thinking about the lens through which young people are learning to read. Reading is an incredibly hard thing to do, even for us as adults and even for us as fluent, accomplished readers. we are constantly grappling with text that might feel hard or that we have to have more resilience for. And something that we often hear about LitCamp is that it's the model around those strengths creates, and maybe this goes back to something Brandon and Kelly said earlier about the self-kindness, but the opportunity for young people to say, actually, it is really normal to grapple with text. It's really what readers do. And writers also, because there's a lot of writing in LitCamp. So those social emotional pieces also work with the idea of how we grapple with difficult vocabulary, how we grapple with complex grammar, how we grapple as English learners, if English is not our first language, how we value our primary language and bring that language, that home language in our hearts into the classroom in a proud way. And also just really reading harder books. Kids will tell us at the end of LitCamp, I read in ways I never thought possible. I'm crushing it. I'm a super reader, and that takes a lot of care on the part of teachers. I think that also speaks to the fact that the framework gives young people a chance to tell the stories about their own learning lives, to say, I overcame that, or I pushed through that. The hard parts didn't feel so hard because I knew that there's my strength-based framework to work from.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. Brandon, I kind of teased in the beginning some of your work with community organizations and serving on boards in the community. Real quick outreach to our lit leaders joining us today. 3 tips to create that engaged community who strives to incorporate that strategic outreach. So I'm a lit leader and I'm trying to get that strategic outreach with my community. And in your experience, you've had a lot of experience to do that. What are 3 tips to really create that engagement?
Sure. So I think the first one was, and I commented on this a bit earlier, identify experiences that you want your children to experience, and then look for those community partners that can provide those experiences, whether providing the financial resources or the experience in itself. Also, make sure that you're connecting with organizations that align with your goals and your visions of what you want to achieve with the learning experiences that you have. And also making sure that the expectations that you have for your students in the learning that you want them to achieve is the same work of the community organization. And then kind of what I began with, just making sure that as you identify groups, that they also mirror the diversity of your schools, that those groups also have that same diversity or lift diversity in the same way that your district is striving to do. That's
awesome. Yeah, I'm over here writing furiously. I'm part of the panel, but I'm just here learning now. I'm just here joining with everybody. That's awesome. So what are we doing, with the LitCamp experience to influence a culturally responsive environment and in our districts at large? Or what are you doing beyond the LitCamp environment to influence a culturally responsive environment? We'll start. Let's go, Kelly, if you can kick that one off for us.
Sure. I think, it goes back to what Brandon was just talking about. You need to know your community. You need to take the time to get out there and listen and hear what everyone is saying. You need to pull together your groups. You need to bring your community together. So one of the things that I do in my current division is I have a district-wide family engagement committee. And that committee is made up of every Title I school that we have. It's made up of our families that are English learners. It's families that have students with disabilities, different races, ethnicity, everything. And we come together and we start with celebrations. We start by bragging. Tell us something wonderful in general. And then from there, we ask some poignant questions about, what do they need? What do they think we could be doing to support them as a family? And when you truly listen to that, you can create culturally responsive action strategically and thoughtfully because you have listened. And then it goes from there where you bring that back into the work that you do on a daily basis. I write the Title I application for our division, but I don't do it by myself. All of those voices, all of those notes, all of those videos are revisited as I'm creating that. So when we think about LitCamp, that's how I did it. I did it with the community. That's why it was no surprise to anybody. That's why it was rallied around. That's why it continued to grow, is because we did it together, and they could see in the text that was chosen, the language that was used, the activities that we did, that it was going to respond to all of our communities, not just one.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And I would just add, one, making sure that culturally responsive and diverse text and resources are available to all students. We're real big in our district, like all districts, about equity. And one of our drivers was making sure that any kid who either needed or wanted LitCamp or a summer learning experience had access to an experience that they could connect with. I think also that as an educator, it's our job to, yes, we want to link and connect to the standards. We want to move kids to mastery, but we also need to ensure that every kid, no matter what their background is, can connect to the learning activity or experience that we're wanting to engage in. And I think LitCamp helps really support teachers do that it enables them to have conversations and expand the curriculum into current event topics or things relevant to the community that we live in, so that every kid walks out of that classroom at the end of the day feeling like I can connect to this story or to this lesson or to this strength in this way. And then also we also really thought about how do we then engage our parents. Some of our parents don't feel comfortable walking into our buildings every day. Mm-hmm. And so I think through LitCamp and through summer learning opportunities where it was more relaxed environment, having opportunities for them to come in and be a partner in their child's education, I think is also a great way to make sure that we're responding to all of the cultures and lives and backgrounds that our students bring each and every day into our buildings.
And I'll just say, just to add, to say that we built LitCamp in a rich, beautiful lit world, culturally diverse environment, and built the 7 strengths with our students across the world. So we wanted to be very intentional about the fact that the strengths can be carried with us in our home languages, in our cultural perspectives, that we are really holding and caring for the stories of our elders and our communities. These are the ways that those strengths take root and shape and reach across the generations. It's very, very beautiful to me to hear Kelly and Brandon speak of the intergenerational piece of this, that the families feel welcome because of LitCamp. They feel a sense of being part of this. And that was something we made a lot of intention around right from the very beginning. And to the point about, which I think we're all passionate about, of course, thanks to Scholastic for helping us make this reality, is the books are shining, culturally responsive, beautiful books. We have LitCamp is in English and Spanish. And so the books in Spanish are so beautiful. And really, the team worked very hard to celebrate authors who might not have been as well known when we first started this program. And so there's just so many ways in which the children have guided us, and the children in all their glorious diversity have guided us in this building, and the constant evolution of LitCamp, which, as has been shown by these amazing administrative leaders, continues to be co-created by communities, which I think is the best part of LitCamp. Is that's the deepest, richest responsiveness part, is that every year it's co-created by its own communities. And that's the best of all.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know that, the curation of text, Pam, that your team did in working with Scholastic to find the perfect text at each grade level, and English and Spanish for each strength is truly amazing. And I always caution first-time users of LitCamp that when you receive the materials, that you might think that it might just be a 1-hour project to get the materials together, but you need to give yourself an entire day, because when you hold the books in LitCamp, and Kelly and Brandon, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never found anybody that says otherwise, you will find yourself sitting on a floor reading children's books for at least 3 hours the first time you unpack LitCamp. Am I wrong there, either of you?
No, absolutely, yeah. One of the only issue that we had was our kids wanted to take all the books home. We're like, we got to finish these. We got to finish working with them. So that was the only issue, is they wanted to take those titles home, and we actually made a way to make sure that we put some of the titles in their hands to even to go home. So yes, absolutely.
It's so wonderful. When you see it and you live it, it's just joyful. And, to go back to where, we started the conversation in terms of kindness, you just see that when the kids are participating, when they leave. You see that with the adults when they're participating and when they leave. You see that with the families. And, when Brandon shared, some families, that coming into the school environment is not as comfortable for them. And we've got to reach them the best ways that we can and open up our arms. And maybe it is sometimes having something more relaxed for them to come to and participate in. And sometimes it is sending home something with the child that just says directly to the parent, we thank you for, everything you're doing, so that they know that even if they didn't step that foot in the school door, that we know that they're playing a part at home. And I know that's greatly appreciated. And that's something that, is flexible in LitCamp, that you can add to it. You can add those little notes that go home. You can add, the community connections, like Brandon was talking about with his community, making sure for his middle school students that it was going to resonate with them, and making those adjustments while you have the core right there for you. So it's a wonderful thing. And, those 7 strengths really carry on with the kids. It becomes, they internalize it. Because like I said, the question about asking them what kindness is, it's the same thing. Ask them what friendship is. Ask them what they think confidence means, and they get to have those conversations, and it carries on with them as they go to the next grade level and beyond that. And one of the things that I've always said to folks is, when you are thinking about reading and writing, you're really creating a sense of hope. And hope is not fluff, folks. It's self-efficacy and optimism. And those are 2 huge things you have to have for your future. And LitCamp creates a structure that supports that during your summer programming.
Yeah, and I love the comments about it. It stays with them, right? It carries through, and then if you have the opportunity to read Pam and Ernest's book, you'll see about that deep research about why those strengths are so important, because they do. Once they see that they have those strengths as a super reader, it extends beyond the classroom. It extends into the community. It extends beyond what they're doing just for the purpose of reading, but it's how they live the life, the way they see themselves in the future. I've seen that inside of my own districts, my own schools, and then now I'm fortunate to see that same opportunity in watching districts like what you all get to do. So really such a privilege. I'm going to give, I think we'll have time for about 2 questions. So I'm going to give some people, if you have any questions, please throw those in the chat real quickly. While we wait for that, what I did want to do is just pause and charge everybody here today to think to yourselves, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do in your district, in your school, in your community, in your influence, right? To have kindness impact the community, impact the learning of students, and making sure that all of your learners can find those strengths that we know promote success into the school year and throughout the life. What are you going to do? How can you make that happen for your kids, for your teachers? Brandon and Kelly shared amazing stories about how it impacted not just the students, but how it impacted the adults and how it impacted the community. How can you do that inside of your classrooms? So let me check. Good question. A question that we all deal with inside of the school community. And Dr. Cito, I'll throw this one to you. ESSER's funding. Can ESSER's funding cover LitCamp?
Yes, ESSER funding can support the funding for LitCamp. They have a portion of it for extended learning, and this supports extended learning. It also can support LitLeague, if anybody was wondering, because that's also extended programming. So there's a section of ESSER funds specifically for that purpose. And I don't know, Brandon, if you want to add to that or not.
Sure. I mean, we also just other grant funding, Title I, Title IV can also support, purchasing LitCamp or LitLeague resources.
Outstanding. Yeah. I think your call out there, letting people know, Dr. Cito, you are also the Title I coordinator. You get the funding questions pop in always. Yeah.
They do.
And very critical, very critical.
It is very important, because you do want to make sure that you have the opportunity with the lead up. But once again, if you're doing this with your community, it's not as large of an ask, because once they know what it is and you explain to them, with them what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, they're buying in. And most of the time people will be like, okay, well, we've got this funding source, those types of things. But it's that first initial getting everybody to just understand what you're doing and how it is different, and how it has a positive impact on everyone that's involved.
Yeah. One final question. What is the average timeline to consider when planning summer learning programs? So in terms of putting LitCamp in place, what is the timeline, or any tips for getting it in place for the first time?
Oh, well, I have a lot of good things to say about that. We might have to that for another time, because I would say I've seen districts do amazing things. These two leaders here, and you, Jimmy, too, and you were in your district. But I actually think the impact can start so early, as opposed to waiting and then rushing, to really be intentional right now and really think about LitCamp as something everyone's going to be counting down to. We can have rallies and getting ready and counting those days. And really, I think to the point of what Brandon and Kelly said earlier, in really enrolling the community, thinking about our community partners, and all of the ways that feels like it's not just a separate part of the year, but it's a really central heartbeat of the district. And I know you both can say some grand things about this, but I admire what districts do to make it feel really disciplined, intentional work that doesn't just pop in at the end.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Pam, to that I think it goes with any good initiative you have in education. The longer you give yourself time to plan, the better it can be. We really want to partner with our community partners and, again, give our children experiences even outside of the classroom, but also giving teachers the opportunities to really learn the materials. Scholastic did a great job providing professional development for us to understand kind of the nuts and bolts. But when you really want teachers to start to envision and really take ownership of this, I think giving them a longer time to have the materials, understand the text, read the text, and really understanding how they can build connections for their students. So I would say the earlier, the better.
Yes, I also agree. I've done it both ways. That's why we were all kind of laughing. But I planted little seeds along the way. But one year I did not get notified of the funding until May, and the program was supposed to start at the end of June. But I've been planting little seeds along the way with the staff, saying we might have this great opportunity to do something called LitCamp, a literacy camp for our students. And what goals might we set for that? What might it look like for us? And luckily, I just planted those little seeds along the way. And then when the funding comes, so just know that if that's something that's going on, it is absolutely doable. The other thing I agree with is the professional development is actually really fun. Like the staff actually really enjoy the professional development. And the great part about the professional development is that they're actually getting to read some of the text. They're getting to do some of the games. They're getting to have those fun things. But also it leaves plenty of time for them to go use that creativity in their classrooms to create a camp environment. And we've done it in different ways where we've had community partners come in and help them decorate. We've had where high school students have worked on some of the art and provided it to the schools. So there's many different options and ways of doing that. But I will tell you, when you're planning for it, yes, give yourself time to talk to people, to share with people, to hear from people as much as you can. But if you do find out last minute, like, okay, actually we got the green light and I have a month, you can certainly do it and make it happen for your community.
Great. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. I love the idea too of, if you got to do it quickly, LitCamp is a great answer to get it up and running. But if you have the opportunity to have the time, and how you can involve the community now inside of LitCamp, because we gave ourselves that runway to get get all those hands united. That's a great vision of both of those realities that come with operating schools and districts. Right?
Yeah.
It's just true. Sometimes and sometimes, Brandon, all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, from the state, you've got an additional this amount of funding somehow. And you're like, okay.
You got to spend it in this amount of time.
Yes, you have this amount of time to spend it. And I guarantee people that are on the call right now are nodding their heads with us because they've lived it too.
That's great. Well, again, thank you, everybody. Pam, Kelly, Brandon, you all are truly just educational giants, and what you're doing in your districts for your students, your teachers, and community at large is really inspiring. And I've seen the power of LitCamp in my own experiences, but I think nothing brings me more joy than when I get to see across the country how it's impacting. And Pam, I know, has seen the impact across the globe. So again, so excited about that. We do want to let you know inside of the chat, you can find out more about LitCamp and LitLeague. So reach out to your Scholastic rep if you would like to find out more about these programs. Again, LitCamp is the summer program that really allows you to have that amazing summer experience. And then LitLeague is that extension. So everything you've heard about today doesn't have to stop in the summer, but can be part of your literacy enrichment throughout the school year with LitLeague. Please keep in touch with us on social media. Follow Scholastic on LinkedIn and on Twitter at Scholastic Ed. We'll also drop our panelists' Twitter handles inside the chat, so you can keep in touch with any of us. Please follow us, reach out, tweet at us. I know that makes us happy, feels us connected on social media, and makes those social media apps really the joy and the pluses that social media can bring. We're proud to be your Scholastic education partner, and we're excited to team up with you to create engaging summer learning programs and assist with the community partnerships that you have the opportunity to build, and truly make kindness and those 7 strengths be a part of what everyone does inside of your community. Be the leader as the educator, and then watch it spread across your community. Kelly, Brandon, Pam, I love you all. Thank you all very much.
Jimmy, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.